listen, we want to just say, to start off, I'm going to do a little intro for you. And
what are you doing? What's the general structure?
We're going to talk about your whole life in about 20 seconds. But no, I'm just joking, of course. But
what's your framework?
We're attempting to find out about one of the greatest minds in America, and we're looking at him right here. And one of the things that we're just so proud of is we've been following you. Little did we know of what a mark you would make on our country. But back in the 80s or 70s, we came up with this little. They had a magazine called Covert Action, which I also was, along with my Soldier of Fortune magazine, I also subscribed to your magazine to find out what was going on in the world, and from that point of view. At any rate, first of all, I'm going to say a few things, and then if there's anything that's not exactly...
Part of a bigger project? What's the bigger project?
The bigger project here, as I say, is we're going to just talk about... well, variety of issues, Vietnam and...
No, I mean, is our interview part of the bigger project?
No, it's a one of a kind. It's a one only. There's not going to be anything that's going to step in the way there.
And what do you plan to do with it?
It'll be on the web,
I see.
24/7. There's no money involved. I'm sorry to say we don't have distribution yet. So this is going to be another labor of love for us to the people of the world.
You've been doing things like this for a while?
We've been doing things like this for about 7 years. And the cutting edge is designed to reach, be a part of media that no one covers, that no one finds out about. Noam Chomsky is written up and seen on television, but you get a 20-second soundbite. You never get the context of what you're saying. Or you're in a specific auditorium giving a specific speech about a specific item for hours. We don't do any of that. What we attempt to do is to focus it and to try to reach down and say, here's a man that's got 30 degrees, and if we're not correct now in what we're saying here, you have 30 honorary degrees from all over the world for your work in linguistics. You have over 100, we don't even know how many books that you've written since 1967, or was it before that? So you're the most well thought of man. The only thing I don't think, you won the Nobel Prize for anything?
Kyoto Prize, which is the Japanese counterpart.
Same thing. Yeah.
Sort of. It's not as famous, but it's the Japanese effort, and it's broader. So this was basic science.
Now you're talking about linguistics, and I'd like to just follow that a little further. How many languages do you speak?
One, sort of.
But you've done this incredible study and set groundbreaking rules for linguistic philosophy and for computer science and a whole raft of other issues, right?
Yeah, but it's theoretical work. It's not about. I mean, I don't. Of course, I use material from particular languages. The last guy who was here did a dissertation on Dutch and Hungarian. So,
right, Dutch and Hungarian.
But it's kind of like theoretical physicists using material from experimental physicists.
Well, you got started. A couple of things that we couldn't find out about you, so I'm going to ask you. The first one is, did you ever serve any time in the service of our country in the armed forces?
No, and I have no idea why. I was 1A, but they never called me.
Yeah, you seem to be at the right age for Korea.
That was Korea, and I went through, I forget what you call it now. It was
the draft.
Yeah, I was classified 1A. Actually, what actually happened is I didn't have a PhD, and I really hadn't intended to get one, but I asked the draft board for a 6-week extension. It was April 1st, so that I just finish up a PhD, and they granted me the 6-week extension, and I applied. I wasn't even registered, and sort of quickly faked my way through a PhD, and I never heard from them again. I didn't contact them.
Of course not. Now, let me ask you this. You started being on the radar screen of America in a big way back in the Vietnam era, which is about '67. What was the name of the first book you wrote? Do you remember?
Well, the first book by a real publisher was American Power and the New Mandarins, which was mostly a collection of articles. It was a collection of articles almost entirely from the 60s.
From the 60s, yeah. Now, you were one of the big voices. Now, in modern days, I hate to jump that far. That's a huge jump, but you're considered the darling of the left in one regard. You're considered. I mean, the people have called you everything good. I mean, from the very best to the very worst. But there's no doubt that everyone has an opinion about Noam Chomsky. They really do. And we had in our study of you, we found a couple of people that had particular, really pointed areas about you. And one of them was a guy by the name of David Horowitz, who wrote about the 101 most dangerous professors in America. And I don't know which number you were. I couldn't find that.
Pretty high, I'm sure.
You were pretty high up on the list of people that was dangerous. And then there was a guy also by the name of Kahn that wrote, I have that somewhere, but C-O-H-N, Warner Kahn or something like that.
Warner Kahn.
Yes, and he's a famous guy that wrote about how you were such anti-Semitic and a naysayer to the, and all these other things. So we got all these great, I mean.
If you really do a Google search, you'll get a sample of the letter, the collection I get every night. Every night, I'm sure to get at least letters from at least 4 industries. One of them claims I want to kill all the Jews. The second claims I'm a Mossad agent. The third claims I'm anti-American. The fourth claims I'm a CIA agent. And they're guaranteed every night.
No, that's the part of the story. Let's do a little fallback position. A couple of things to clear up, because you got involved and I think we need. This is an area no one's ever really. I don't think they've asked you, but we're trying to be innovative here, Dr. Chomsky. We don't want to be the same old stuff for you. Back in the Vietnam era, when this was started, they had, of course, we had the Watergate situation. That came later, but there was always this doubt. You've never doubted picking on the Republicans, the Democrats, whoever was in office. It seems like you're always, really saying something not too positive, even about JFK or about Lyndon Baines Johnson or about Nixon.
There were some positive things. In fact, in all of them, mainly LBJ, who pushed through some significant domestic measures.
But not in foreign policy.
In foreign policy, the differences are pretty slight. Johnson didn't really initiate much in the way of foreign policy. He was kind of, in Vietnam, was kind of trapped by all this happening. I don't think he had to pursue it the way he did, but it was already underway. I mean, the invasion, it's not the way it's discussed here, but the fact of the matter is that the invasion of South Vietnam, which was the main part of the war, was in 1962. That's Kennedy. And contrary to a lot of mythology, Kennedy remained a hawk to the day of the assassination. There's a lot of...
He was afraid of those dominoes falling, huh?
Well, see, the domino theory has 2 versions. One of them is intended for the public, and it's ridiculous, and it keeps being refuted, and people say, oh, that was a terrible mistake. The other version is very sensible, and it keeps being pursued all the time. The version for the public is, pick your domino. Ho Chi Minh, let's say, is going to get into a canoe and land in California and rape your grandmother or something. That's a caricature of the version for the public, and the name can change. Like now it's Chavez, sometimes somebody else, and that continually gets refuted. And people say, oh yes, we exaggerated, mistake, and so on. But there's a sensible version of the domino theory, which never gets refuted because it's correct. And that's the one that actually applies in intervention after intervention. What it claims is, with some plausibility, that if there is successful independent development in some corner of the world, and the poor countries are more dangerous than the rich countries in this respect. But if it succeeds somewhere, let's say Grenada or Laos or any crazy place you think of, others who have similar problems nearby are going to raise questions about why not us. And then, to use Henry Kissinger's terminology, the virus spreads contagion elsewhere.
Would you say that was related to something like Mozambique? Because Mozambique was supposed to be this great socialist, independent nation that was going to turn everything around and make it beautiful for everyone. And
same in case after case, and we don't know, because every one of them, almost, well, I think invariably, gets attacked and destroyed.
Now, is this related also to Allende in Argentina? Was it a similar situation
Allende,
there?
where Kissinger used the phrase virus that will spread contagion elsewhere. And he was afraid it would spread contagion as far as southern Europe, not because Chilean armies were going to land in Rome, but because the prospect of a social democratic government operating through parliamentary means and carrying out independent programs contrary to the wishes of the United States might influence Southern Europe. At that point, the danger, what they regarded as the danger, was what was called Euro-communism. That was the former communist parties, which were becoming sort of social democratic. And it's kind of interesting that Brezhnev was just as worried about them as Kissinger.
So they're sort of, in other words, these are countries that are operating independently without any help from either the United States or the USSR at that point.
They will. You can drive them into support from the USSR. Most of them don't want it. But in case after case, the U.S. has driven the countries the states it wanted to undermine into the hands of the Russians, and then used that as a pretext for intensifying the attack.
This is a thought that I've been wondering about, that I know that you might be able to answer. Our concept is to get cheap labor, don't have any environmental concerns, and build products out of our country. That's the way we make the products that are the cheapest thing we can find at Walmart, is because we can do this.
That's the current version.
That's the current version.
Broader version. And
okay.
That is that it's not unique to the United States. Every substantial great power has had similar views, and the United States happens to be world dominant power, so it's overwhelming.
So
the idea is to have an international order which is open to penetration control by domestic sources of power. Now, it's not a secret who the domestic sources of power are in the United States. U.S.-based international corporations. They should have access to the resources and markets and investment opportunities and so on.
Okay, let's stop there just and help me out here. You've mentioned several times energy companies. You've mentioned I think there's 4 groups that you have identified in the United States that you consider the power brokers of these international corporations.
They're called the Seven Sisters. I think most of them now are U.S. based.
Okay, but those of you call them the Seven Sisters, and what would
that's not what I call them. That's what they're called by everyone in the literature.
Oh, okay.
These are the big concentrations of. By now they're kind of diversified, but like Exxon. By now a lot of them become conglomerates.
Right.
Like ExxonMobil, Texaco, Chevron, and so on.
Those are just the energy companies. What about ADM and some of these other those kind of companies?
Well, they're not energy.